The problem with contrastive analysis. Very soon, the contrastive analysis came under a lot of criticism, and the main criticism was because it failed to predict the learner errors accurately. So the time at which it was highlighting learner errors would occur, they did not occur, and at the times at which it said learner errors would not occur, it also that also did not always happen. So it was also realized that the first language might not be the major cause of all the errors or all the different types of errors that the learners were making. And depending on the studies, the mean number of these errors was at times 33% and at times only 3%. So there was a big range difference also. So one could not actually say something conclusively about the transfer, not the transfer, but the interference of the first language. Similarly, they said the assumption of contrastive analysis was that if the language of the first language of the learner is different from the construction of the second language, the error will occur and there will be more errors. And however, they realized that this was not the case always. And similarly, at times when the learners had similar languages also, then even those similarities also at times led to learner errors. So another problem was, which Nemser identified, was that the same errors that the learners were making could be identified to the first language also and to other sources also. So no one could say with confidence that this was because of the first language negative transfer. And in 1974, you have Tuley and Bird, a study which came into which received a lot of attention, and this study actually challenged the very assumption on which contrastive analysis was based. It simply marginalized the role of the first language, and it said learners, when they are learning a language, they put into use what they say a creative construction of language. So gradually they are taking us towards interlanguage, and they say they put together their own form of language, which is actually not much related to the first language. And they said the contrastive analysis is based on the negative interference of or transfer of the first language. So it's the whole assumption is that the first language is not a good thing for the second language. However, when a child is being taught a second language, when an adult is learning a second language, the aim is not to unlearn the first language. The aim is to learn another language. So if we are saying the first language is going to interfere with the second language, then we are forcing the learners to forget about the first language and now learn the second language. That was again a big sort of a good argument against contrastive analysis. And then the problem was also in the studies that were conducted when contrastive analysis was being done. And the issue was that there was no distinction being made between the adults and children. That is, the findings that were coming from adult learners were actually being applied for the in classrooms for children also. So we can't say what works for the adults also works for the children, and how good a thing it is to sort of try to stop the first language development of the child and force on the child to use only the second language, and to stop this whole process and whole role of this mediating role of language in how the child actually tries to express himself or herself or interprets the world. So that was also a major reason why the results of the contrastive analysis could not possibly be applied and any conclusion reached as such.